the Board of Election Commissioners for the City of Chicago. Good morning. My name is Marisol Hernandez. I'm the chairwoman. Seated to my left is Commissioner Jonathan Swain, and to my right is Commissioner William Cressy. The next item on the agenda is the consideration of the agenda. Are there any changes? If not, we'll proceed with the approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of June 27, 2017. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is the Executive Director's Report. Mr. Gough.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Just to let the board members know that we just recently completed our canvass. We did our first mailing. We're waiting for the second, for all the returns to come back so we can send out our second notice. It went very well, except for we had a couple of issues. The first issue was on our verification of registration card, we list the mental health district. That only involves 198 precincts. And the phone calls that we got, people were saying, there's nothing wrong with my mental health. So I just wanted to let you know this will be the last time you see this on any of our documents.
Okay.
So it was a problem. Our phones literally blew up. Another item was that people were, voters were saying that their verification of registration card was missing. We're getting information of what locations they were to see if there was some type of issue. So we're working on that. So if you hear anything about it, we're on top of it.
Missing how? Punched out? Separate?
Yeah, punched
Right
out. And if you look at mine, it's only perfect at the top. It's almost impossible.
Right.
So, but we've had some complaints on that, and we're working on that as we speak.
Okay.
And for my edification, mental health district.
Mental health district is a.
There were two different referenda to establish two different mental health districts. One in 2014, one in 2016. One of these districts is on the west side and one is in the River North area. And so very few people live in them. And that's, I think that probably even a lot of people who are living in them might not even realize it. And that's why they're calling, wondering why their mental health status is listed on there.
And if you look, there's a list of the precincts that are involved in those two districts. It is a, the people that serve on that board are appointed by the mayor, and is it also by the state?
They're not elected, so
Right. They're
probably
appointed.
not a need for us to keep it on there.
So
Okay.
I just wanted you to be aware of that.
Okay. Thank you.
The other item is that we had a meeting with Equip for Equality on Thursday, August 3rd. Barry, how are you doing? It was a very good meeting. What we finally have, we have listed and completed, almost completed 99% of our surveys. And if you look, that is a document that shows our payable and non-payables, polling place locations, and it also says what's wrong, what the DOJ found that was inaccessible in those precincts. We're going to be meeting with the city to talk about the payables, to see how we can correct those. And if you look, there are a lot, but some of these happen to be signage, not there, alternate entrance. So this is the items that we're working with Equip for Equality, and we're going to set up a meeting with the city very shortly. So I wanted the board members to be aware of that.
So if I may, so you could be suggesting that it would seem that many of the deficiencies are readily fixable?
Some are, and some are temporary. And we're sending out a letter to the different people involved seeking help and how we can make these changes. So I wanted you to be aware of that. And one other item, I have a conference call with the State Board of Election to go over security on the state VR system. I'm working with the State Board on that. So if I leave the meeting, I have a 10 o'clock conference call that I have to make.
Okay.
And that's all I have for my board members right now.
And thank you, Mr. Gough. But our communications director, Mr. Allen, is not here today. So we'll proceed to old business infrastructure
Oh,
projects.
no, wait, I'm sorry.
Oh,
My
no problem.
mistake. Underneath my presentation, we have the folks from the Literacy Works. Audra, would you introduce? If it's all right, I'd like to give their presentation during my.
Yes. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So Literacy Works is a nonprofit organization that in Chicago is the leading expert in adult literacy. So we partnered with Literacy Works for the November 2016 general election to update and increase the readability of our provisional voting instructions, election day registration instructions, as well as split precinct instructions intended for poll workers, as well as the certificate of results. We had really good product out of that. It was a great experience working with them. So we would like to partner with Literacy Works again for the March primary to increase the readability of our election judge and election coordinator handbook. And that contract, I believe, is in front of you today. Present at the meeting is Christine Kenny and Melanie Sampson. Christine Kenny is the Executive Director of Literacy Works, and Melanie Sampson is the Literacy Specialist. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Do you want to come up and
No.
say a little bit about what you do and how you're going to work with the board?
Sure. We have a program called Literacy Connect, where we work with different programs across the city to help them best serve their people who have low literacy. So it could be healthcare institutions, legal institutions, and so we've worked with Audra on the past project. When was that?
Yeah, so it was the summer, fall of 2016.
Right, and so we've been working with Audra now to talk about the handbook. And I'll let Melanie talk a little bit because she's doing the work on it.
So I've spent a lot of time talking with Audra over the last 2 months, and we've spent a lot of time looking over the handbook and just identifying opportunities to improve it, with the goal being accessibility for the general public, including those folks that may have challenges with literacy or reading. So our goal is to bring down the text to sort of a more intermediate level. Right now, we did some sample examinations of some samples of the text, and we're looking at things that are like at a high school or college or beyond level. So we think that can be something that can be very valuable for the folks that are working at the polls, so that everyone can have a better experience. And just really trying to take the spirit of plain language and insert it in as many ways as possible into the text, so that it can be the most useful tool possible for everyone involved.
So how do you go about doing this? What steps are involved?
Sure. So we've actually spent a lot of time already over the last 2 months looking at the handbook. So with some of the text, there's online tools you can use to kind of do samples of readability. There's also math formulas you can do to do that. So that's one piece, but that's not the whole picture, because you can bring a text down and still not be necessarily the most accessible. So I bring to it my experience as an adult education instructor for many years, and I managed an adult education program. So I've had a lot of experience working with intermediate learners, and I understand what their challenges are and what the best practices are in working with those learners. And so, for example, there are just a variety of things that you can do to make the text more accessible, such as speaking directly to the person that you're talking to instead of having a third person that's voice in the text. Things like that make it more accessible. Looking at ways that the design and the text interact together. There are ways that you can create more white space, or make headings more accessible for people so that they can find the information more easily. So those are the type of things we've been looking at so far. I've actually passed on text so far for Audra to look at for chapters 1 through 4, actually, so we can get an idea to make sure we're on the same page, and that it's fitting the needs that you're looking for.
Well, since this came to our attention, I've made a point to talk to a number of poll watchers and judges of elections in both parties, and they are unanimous in this is something that we need to get done by the next election. And so They said, you know, pay them $1 million if you have to. No, we won't. We'll pay them a reasonable sum. But I am glad I also looked into your organization. You do wonderful work. And I think this will work and make us
Well,
understand.
thank
Well,
you.
thank
We're
you.
thrilled
Excited.
for this
Yeah.
opportunity, and we actually are planning to meet with other poll watchers and election judges to get more feedback too from people on the ground. So thank you very much.
A couple questions. Audra, have we done, so this is going to deal with the general elections handbook and the like.
Correct.
The previous worked on what again?
Election day registration instructions,
Okay.
provisional voting, split precinct, and then the certificate of results, the Form 8.
Great. Have we done an audit, or maybe we can think about doing an audit of looking at all of our outward-facing documents and with this review?
We're working on that. In fact, I sent something, gave you something about civic design that we're looking at all of our materials. So
Okay.
we're going over everything. In fact, also Literacy Works is going to do focus groups, correct? So we're gonna actually have focus groups where we can see some of our poll workers and public and see if it's worked. What we're putting in place works.
Well, yeah, that was going to be my next question, but before I get there, you know, we might give some thought to looking at our web presentation. Because if I'm thinking, this is one presentation to our poll workers, and that's important, but I think also the place where a lot of people can interface with us that might have some challenges in terms of, you know, this kind of understanding is on the web. And so we might want to give some thought to looking at how complex or not complex our web conversation is.
And that's one
That's
of
what
the
this
things.
does.
Yes.
Okay. All
Okay.
right.
So we're looking at all of our documents, everything that interfaces with the public. We're reviewing right now.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Let's proceed to old business, which is the infrastructure projects and changes in election administration. Mr. Gough?
This is one of them that we're working on right now.
And we're in the process.
And we have our RFP is out on the street. Morel, we had questions from the vendors, and the answers are submitted today.
They were due last
They're-
Wednesday.
Uh-huh, okay.
And the addendum will be issued on Wednesday, which
Okay.
is tomorrow.
So-
Okay, thank you, Laura. Are there anything new with regards to electronic poll books?
Yes, there is. We're working on some items right now. If I can meet with each one of the board members after this meeting to discuss some items before we put them in play.
Okay. And then, generally voting equipment, we have our RFP out,
Yes.
obviously. Legislation is the last one, is there anything?
There are some updates. Some of it doesn't matter too much to us, but is still of interest. The bill on changing the publication of constitutional amendments is on its way to the governor. Was sent to him on June 29th. The ballot photograph law has been stalled again in the assignments committee. That's the one that would make it legal to take your ballot selfie, but illegal to use it for improper purposes. In a related note, there was a trial court downstate that ruled the current law to be unconstitutional. The current law just would prohibit the taking of a photograph. So we'll have to see where that stands at the time that we start having people in voting on ballots again, and figure out what our policy is going to be. Public notice questions, the timing of them. Publication notice is sent to the governor on the 27th of June. Number of election judges in places not under Board of Election Commissioners has also passed both houses on its way to the governor. It would allow county boards to reduce from 5 to 3 election judges per precinct, but that doesn't affect us. The elected Chicago school board bills, there's two of them, one for the school board and one for the community college board. There was a Senate amendment that was not concurred with by the House. So the House voted on June 24th not to concur with the Senate motion, and now it's been gone back to the non-concurrence committee. The community college elected bill is back to Senate assignments, so it's stalled up as well. The bill on allowing people to obtain residency for voting purposes in hospitals and mental institutions, if they've been there for over 180 days, has been re-referred to the assignments committee. That was on May 26th. So we still haven't really looked into how much that would even impact us, other than if they are allowed to register at those places, we would accept their registration applications. We've talked about the digitized signature bill has also been placed. There was a Senate amendment that had a lot of other stuff in it that has not been, that was voted non-concurrence by the House. So that's held up because of the Senate amendment. It seems that the digital signature issue is not what's holding it up, but the amendment to it is. Pre-registration sent to the Rules Committee, that was not going to go anywhere anyway. There's a bill on signature requirements that would change the minimum and maximum signature requirements to place new political parties and independents on the ballot. That has also been re-referred to the Assignments Committee. And I think that of the ones that really, those are the bills that would affect us the most.
Okay. Thank you. It seems like there's a lot going into the assignments committee.
Yes.
Okay. Under new business, we have the agreement between the Chicago Board of Election Commissioners for the City of Chicago and Literacy Works for election judge and election coordinator handbook revisions. We have been provided with a copy of the proposed agreement. Is there a motion to accept the contract with Literacy Works at the rate of $90 an hour, not to exceed the sum of $27,000 for the term of July 24th, 2017 through October 31st, 2017. And basically, as was stated, it's for the review, analysis, and editorial revisions to the board's 2016 election judge and election coordinator handbook.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes, and we have an agreement.
Mr. Swain?
Okay. Next on the agenda is the legal report. Mr. Lasker, is there anything?
Well, I did talk about this Madison County judge who's ruled the ballot selfie law to be unconstitutional. So we need to keep an eye on whether that case is going to be appealed, and also keep an eye on whether that bill is going to pass,
Okay.
so that we'll need to know how to instruct our election precinct workers accordingly.
Okay.
Another case I know you're aware of, the First District Appellate Court has ruled in a case out of Franklin Park, and the case dealt with statement of economic interest forms, and therefore it will be applicable to our electoral board. There were two issues with the statement of economic interest forms, or the receipts thereof, that were filed with the nomination papers. These were all people running for municipal office in Franklin Park. They did not, on their statement of economic interest forms filed with the county, they did not indicate Franklin Park. For example, the person running for village president said village president, but didn't say Franklin Park. The other issue was that they did not have a date down where they signed the verification at the bottom of the form. But so the electoral board removed the candidates, the circuit court put them back on, reversed the electoral board, and now the appellate court has affirmed the reversal of the electoral board. The substantial compliance was found with the date, the lack of a date. They find that, well, it was filed with the county clerk put a date stamp on it. You can't argue that it does not. They believe the signers of those forms could not argue it related to any different year than the year prior to when they actually filed it. So that takes care of the date. And then, because of the fact that this was filed along with their nomination papers, because these people are residents of Franklin Park, the only village president or village trustee position that they would be entitled to seek would be in Franklin Park, and the court found that to be enough of a nexus to, again, preserve the integrity of the system. The objectors here were arguing that these people would be able to get out from underneath the perjury requirements if their or the perjury penalties if their answers were no good, and the court said, no, we don't think they can get out from under it. So. The one last thing I'd like to plug, if I may, is that tonight I am going down to Pilsen, to the Pilsen Law Center. The Latino Lawyers Committee down there is holding an event on how to run for office. A representative from the Cook County Clerk's Office is going to be there. I'm going to be there. And an attorney, Luke Keller, from the Law Office of Olson and Sturk. It'll be a panel discussion moderated by Bert Olson on behalf of Latino Lawyers Committee at the Pilsen Law Center. So happy to go help those folks learn how to run for office.
Thank you.
What, just so I'm clear, I saw that in the media, or in my perusal of social media. Can you give me some context as to what the conversation is about that you're going to be speaking from?
Yeah, what I'm going to be talking about are practical considerations in running for office, like why are you doing it? Have you talked with your spouse about it? How to run a cost-effective campaign, and then about a bit about what happens once your papers, if you have an objection filed, what's going to happen procedurally through the Chicago Board of Elections. Other people, Luke Keller is talking about the grounds for the objections and how to file the objections. The representative from the Cook County Clerk's Office, she and I are both going to be talking, more from the election administration side as to what happens if you're procedurally in the process.
Thank you. We have no financial report today, and I did not have any public comment sheets. Did we have anyone here from that wanted to talk to us, the board? Anybody here in public session? No. Okay. If not, then we'll proceed. Mr. Lasker, is there a need for executive session?
I would like to have a short executive session to discuss one thing.
Okay, so at this point, we will enter into executive session, and to return, if there is a need to make any motions, we will do so in open session, and then we will adjourn. Is there a motion to go into?
Madam Chair, under what?
That's what I'm going to go right now.
Gotcha.
Is there a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing pending litigation as allowed by Section 2C11 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and we are now in executive session. In open session, there is nothing in closed session that we need to make a motion on in open session. So at this point, if there's nothing further, we will adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn to our next regularly scheduled meeting on August 22nd, 2017 at 9 a.m.?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Assuming we survive the eclipse on the